Hello book lovers, welcome to Uncommon Reader. This is Daniela and I come to you today with my March Reads wrap up. Let's start. So you have probably noticed I have a new jingle at the beginning of the videos, and I wanted to make it official, writing in there that new videos will be available on this channel every Friday at 5 p.m. European Central Time. So you can either hit that notification bell, the subscribe button, or just pop in whenever you want, and I'll be here every Friday with a new video. So without further ado, let's dive in my March reads. And usually I try to really vary my reads, different genres. So it was actually a coincidence that this month I was reading 3 books about women going through adolescence and adulthood. Education, formation type of stories. But the interesting factor that, eased up my read, because they're not easy reads, was that these 3 stories were set in different times and in different locations in the world. And so it made it very, very interesting as well to learn about different cultures, and something that I really like. So let's start diving with the first book. I have it here, and it's L'Arminuta by Donatella di Pietrantonio. Okay, don't worry, this is in Italian, but there is, I'm happy to say, an English version called A Girl Returned. This is a book from 2017, and it did so well in Italy. I was very curious to read this book. I've heard so many good things about it, and they actually did a movie on this book I haven't seen yet. It also won a very prestigious prize in Italy called the Campiello. It tells the story of this girl. In the book she has no name. She's called Arminuta, which is a dialect word from the Abruzzo region in central Italy. That means the returned, the returnee. And of course, that's where the English title picks up, A Girl Returned. And this is a heartbreaking story, because this girl lives a very serene, peaceful, happy life with this couple that she thought were her parents. But turns out that they were only her aunt and uncle that decided to raise her to help the birth family of the Arminuta, because they were in financial strait or for whatever other reason. She discovers that she had to return to her family when she was 13 without any explanation and no warning. She suddenly had to move from a very happy family and city life by the sea into this village where, the dynamics she found in her birth family were very, very different from what she experienced before. Finding an effective mother and 2 brothers and 1 sister, and their dynamic as well was very, very tense. So she was really struggling and also filled with questions. Okay, I had a birth mother, she gave me away. Why did they abandon me? Why these adoptive parents abandoned me? A lot to deal with for, 13 years old. Luckily, her sister Adriana and her brother Vincenzo kind of create a bond with her. Adriana is full of life and cheerful, and she's happy to have found a sister. So they really build this sisterhood and a lot of support for one another. As for Vincenzo, he's looking at her actually not really like a brother, let's put it this way. And so their energy is totally different, but still very interesting, because this way she also enters in that phase where she discovers the interest for the boys and all, those things that relate that adolescence period. The struggle though continues, because her adoptive mother once in a while shows up with gifts and money, because she knew that her birth family was, economically not stable. And she would not show her face, though. So the mystery continues, and also the reader is left with a lot of questions because, we can't figure out why she was abandoned. And we will find out, and the Arminuta will find out eventually, but a bit later in life. And the reason they say they kept it a secret to her was that they thought that she would not understand as a child the reasons that she was back to her native family. But if you think of the situation, I mean, leaving at 13 years old in the dark for all these years, it's I don't know if it's a good thing. It's not good parenting for sure. This book is vibrant and raw. Her writing, it's so poetic that really is worth a try. I love this book and I rated it 5 stars. Next, I want to talk about A Frozen Woman by Ernaux, French Nobel Prize for Literature. This is the Italian version, but of course I'm going to share the English cover, one of the editions. Of course, there are many out there. Annie Ernaux, she's known for writing always about herself. And so sometimes it can be a bit repetitive, her books, but definitely she has a lot to say. And sometimes what she writes can be controversial, and there's a lot of aspects that help discussions and such. So this book is kind of divided into parts. In the first part, she is exploring her adolescent years, and it looks like she's so curious about, becoming a woman and having relationship with boys. So she, with her friend Brigitte, go on and on talking about this topic. And her friend Brigitte is way more inhibited than her. So Annie kind of envies her, and she would like to have her confidence. She hangs out with her, so in the hope of, becoming her a little bit. Brigitte's family also is a typical family where roles, women and men roles are respected as society wants. So she has a working dad and a stay-at-home mom, and everything looks, so spotless clean in Brigitte's house. So she compares to her family, where her mom is working and her dad is a stay-at-home dad. So she really feels a bit uncomfortable about the situation, but at the same time, she can see and admires a bit what her mom does, because her mom is very outspoken, confident, and she pushes Annie to keep studying and becoming independent, because she knows the value of an independent woman that can choose for her future. And Annie doesn't disagree with that. I mean, she studies hard and she wants to become a teacher, and she will succeed. And finally, when we move over this adolescent period, we find her, as a woman, and falling in love with a man that shares her beliefs of having, equal opportunity as a couple. And so they get married, and they hope to be, both working with equal rights and so on. But things start to shift when she's becoming pregnant and they're having a baby. And then when the baby is born, all the balance is shifted towards her becoming sort of a housewife, or having to manage the kid, the house, and her husband new expectations, because he has found, a job, a consolidated job. So he comes home from his lunch break and expects to find a hot meal on the table. So, I mean, instead of maybe trying to help, so here all this resentment and sense of guilt, because these two sentiments and feelings are mixed in Annie's mind. So here we have this very, very intense analysis as she writes all these thoughts of feeling guilty for not being the perfect housewife, like maybe Brigitte's mom was, or not being able to go to work and focus on her work projects, and maybe not being a good mother. So all these struggles that I'm sure are so still current. This book was written in 1981, by the way. And so I feel when I was reading a book that no matter what you do as a woman, there's always something that will have people speak, or have prejudice over your choices, whether you're choosing to not get married or having a kid without being married, or I don't know, not having anything, no kid, no dog, no cat, no husband, or whatever, and you'll be looked at as a weird person. So all this prejudice, I think that it's still there. I don't know if they would do the same with a man. So yes, this book really got me thinking, and the author writing is definitely really raw, honest, and very effective in sharing her sentiments, her feelings, and her thoughts. And I think a lot of women can relate with her. So, I love the second part of this book, not so much the first one, but I gave it 3 stars overall. The last book of women-inspired stories is Alice Murder with Lives of Girls and Women, and I have the Italian edition here because I've been reading this for my book club, my library book club. In fact, we're going to talk tonight about it. I can't wait. And you can see how many bookmarks I got here. I really, really enjoyed this book. I wasn't sure about this book because I didn't know the author, and found that, she's a prize-winning Alice Munro from Canada. And it's her only novel, looks like. I mean, she wrote other things, which I'm really curious to read now. And this is a very insightful and powerful story about this young girl that lives in rural Ontario in a fox farm owned by her dad, and she lives, surrounded by this community, the neighbors, and like everyone knows everyone. And it kind of gave me a familiar feeling of when I was a kid and I would spend time in the summer in my grandmother's town. And we'd have neighbors pop by, unannounced. And so I kind of got right into that mood with this book. And so it really felt so familiar as I was reading. And I really immediately started loving the character Dell because she's a very curious, intelligent, and perceptive girl. And she is full of questions, and I think also because she was exposed to so many different people in her life, so she was really sucking in all the information she could get. And I think also a very important role model was her mom, who was a very opinionated lady, agnostic, and also very curious, and she was selling encyclopedias to farmers. Oh my God. And she's really a character. I very enjoyed her statements talking about religion. So I wish I could read you, but I don't have the English version. Certain things that she talks about, discussing religion with her daughter. And also she's one like Annie's Ernaux's mother that was pushing her to study and to become independent. So this is what I found. Although they were in different times, La Donna Gelata in 1981, and this book was set in 1940, although the author wrote it in 1971. I found these powerful mother figures that I'm sure, had something to do with Dell, in this case, becoming so independent. So I really enjoyed all the aspects of her progress, becoming an adolescent from being 9 years old when we start reading the book, and then her passage to womanhood. Very intense book, powerful, and I definitely would recommend it. It's kind of slow, but the writing is so exquisite that you will enjoy every page. You will find something that you're like, oh, that was so beautifully written. Loved it. Well, excuse me for interrupting, but while I was filming this video, I totally forgot to talk about another book I read in March. And I think it's because I didn't have the copy with me anymore. I had to return it to the library. But subconsciously, I think also because this I'm going to talk to you about now, it was my least favorite read of March. And it belongs to an author that's very, very famous and loved. So I'm quite embarrassed to mention that the book in question is by Margaret Atwood. So in my defense, I have to tell you that I really enjoyed watching her The Handmaid's Tale. I watched it on TV. I didn't read the novels though, but I did read a couple of other novels from her, and I had a hard time going through the stories because they were really, really heavy. I mean, her writing style is excellent, but in my opinion, any story that's, you know, sad and very difficult and painful, it should have a little bit of wittiness and humor and irony in it, just like Charles Dickens taught us, right? That he did it so well. Because for the reader, it has to be a journey of satisfaction and not just of pain, right? So you have to have, even in life, I think, you know, you have to keep the expectations high or balance it with, you know, a little bit of irony and not just having negative thoughts, right? So I think for me, this is a very important aspect of a book that depicts tragedies and unhappy lives. Here is the Penelopead that I didn't like because, well, this book actually has been described as dazzling and entertaining. I didn't find any of these words to fit in the book I read. I had previously encountered Penelope in Circe by Madeline Miller, for example, and Miller described her as courageous, fearful, intelligent, cunning. And in this book, I really didn't recognize the same person. In this book, Penelope is portrayed as insecure, submissive, and crying easily, and quite under the spell of this Euryclea, who was Ulysses' nurse that was living in the island and of Ithaca. I don't know if you pronounce Ithaca in the same way in English. I should have double checked, but I think you know which island we're talking about. And she kind of couldn't make a step or a move without Euryclea knowing. And so, yes, I didn't recognize the same character Madeline Miller described in Circe. I really didn't sync with her character. The story began when she was already dead in the Hades, where she was telling the story of her life, but without any type of passion or happiness. Looks like she was miserable all her life, and comparing herself to Helen of Troy, which was, you know, so confident and beautiful. And so she was sort of feeling the rivalry with her cousin, but really doing nothing about it. So yes, for me, I don't even want to talk too much about it because it was a total miss. I'm sorry if any of you have liked it. It would be interesting to know, you know, if you had the same impressions as me. And all I have to say, I can't wait for the next Madeline Miller book. But March is not over, so I'm finishing up a couple of other books. I have The Call of the Wild by Jack London, which I mentioned in my first video. I was going to do a reading vlog, which I am currently doing. I'm almost finished. I have less than 50 pages to go. It's heartbreaking, of course, but wait for my reading blog. Probably in a couple of weeks, I will be sharing it with you. And I'm also still reading Paris by Edward Rutherford. And this is a beautiful story of the building of the city of Paris throughout the centuries. And we do so alongside with the story of a few families. So it's sort of a saga because we see the members going through the centuries. Also, we witness important steps in the history of France and Paris, like the various revolutions, the wars, but also inspiring things like the building of the Eiffel Tower, the Impressionist movement. And actually, the main core of the book is set on the Belle Époque, which is my favorite time in the history of Paris. And so we are sort of, hanging out with Monet and Picasso, and it's very interesting to sort of jump into that experience. As I was mentioning in my second video, art and books. I think it's very interesting when art gets in books and you learn how they were living at that time. So I find it very entertaining, and I still have about 300 pages to go. But this I have to return in April, so it's going to be sort of May, April read. 900 pages, what can you do? So I've been mixing it with other reads as well. So I might be talking more about this book, but mainly it's a saga, so there's way too much to say. But this author, I guess he also wrote a book on London, a book on New York, and he's very known for historic novel, which is one of my favorite genres, actually, I have to say. And Paris is my favorite city, so it's always a pleasure finding her in books. So this is a wrap up for my March reads, and I would love to hear what you have read in March, and I look forward to talk to you in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. Next week I'm coming to you with my April TBR, which is going to be very, very different from what I've read in March. As I mentioned at the beginning, I really like to mix up my read content. So wait for me next week with the April TBR. In the meantime, I thank you for watching this video. Thank you for supporting this channel with likes and comments. I look forward to see you here next Friday. In the meantime, happy reading, everyone.